Update readme.md. Akshit. Update readme.md. Naveen Kumar. Update readme.md. Ria. Update readme.md. Update again readme.md. Update readme.md. Update readme. Update readme. Update readme. Update readme. Update readme. Update readme. I'm going to go actually insane. For those who haven't been around for a long time, I'm Theo. I make videos about software dev stuff. I care a lot about open source, which is why this, in particular, makes me really mad. It makes me so mad that I made a long video about this in the past that has quite a spicy title. Don't contribute to open source. I still think this is one of my best videos, even if that weird blonde guy with the mustache is the one who recorded it. The point I was trying to make is that people seem to think open source is this magic gateway to a job, and the result is a lot of bullshit. This problem comes from a video I have a lot of issues with. It's this complete Git and GitHub tutorial for beginners on the Apna College channel. I and many others tore this to shreds about 2 years ago, but the problem has maintained. As we saw here, a lot of these PRs were opened recently, and there are so many more still. I want to talk about this because the Express team deserves better, and the entire open source ecosystem deserves a little more accountability from influencers, creators, and educators who make content that results in people getting into the field. If creators allow this type of thing to happen, the trust between the open source tech world and us as the creator world is going to erode really, really quickly. And I, as you probably know if you've been here a bit, care a lot about that relationship. I built this channel on top of these incredible open source projects, doing my best to share the work of these maintainers with all of you guys. This is basically the exact opposite, which is why I have such strong feelings. Do you know what else I have? A cheesy transition to today's sponsor. It's ever been easier to build a new app as a dev? If I'm being real with you guys, it's harder to pick the right place to host it, especially if you want the best of the best for all the pieces of your app. And that's why today's sponsor is so cool. Savala is one of the best places to host your apps, period. And you would imagine that can't be true because even AWS has things that aren't as good as they are on Cloudflare. But that's where Savala comes in clutch, because they're not just throwing your stuff on a random server they have in some warehouse somewhere. They are using the best clouds for all the different parts. The traditional servers run on traditional server clouds in 25 different data centers. So that's where your databases and your actual server code will go. But when it comes to things like your DNS, your CDN, your firewall, your handling of DDoS and protection for that, that's not the right place to do it. The DDoS protection on AWS is garbage. It's incredible on Cloudflare. So if you're doing things right, you're already multi-cloud. But this is what makes Savala so cool. They give you the best of multi-cloud without the headache of multi-cloud. The developer experience is similar to something like Vercel, but it works with real servers, so you can use any tool, language, or framework that you want. And since they're real servers, they can give you a real database too, all in a single platform that's super easy to manage. If you're tired of thinking about these things and you just want to ship, Savala is the cloud for you. And if you sign up today, you get $50 of free credit. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. Check them out now at soydev.link/Savala. So your first question might be, why are we talking about this right now? Wasn't this a drama from 2 years ago? It was, but it didn't get resolved. Despite all the work I and others did to make sure this was publicly known about, nothing happened. I was one of many people who tried calling out Apna to get them to make changes to their video, to edit it in post, take it down, or just do something to reduce the harm here. What exactly is that harm, though? Well, if you've used GitHub for any amount of time, you probably know the notifications are already garbage, which means you can't really use them. Instead, you hop to pull requests and look at the open tab. Your goal is to have as few open PRs as possible so that you know what work is being done at any given time. This looks like there's only 3 PRs open. That's because I'm searching for update README. That means there are 3 PRs currently open that have update README in their title. Yes, really. This is a consistent problem. The Express.js maintainers, which thankless work, by the way. Express.js needs maintenance because it's used by half of the web and a majority of apps that are using Node on the back end. It's a massive project. Even if a lot of the team has moved to other things, the team maintaining it is working incredibly hard, doing very important work, keeping this essential piece of the web alive. And they're not going to get much thanks or credit for it. They're certainly not going to get paid much for it either. And now a shitload of their time is being wasted because Apna College didn't feel like making changes to their videos or taking it down. And more importantly, and normally I try to not be too harsh on the human beings behind the thing, it seems like the Apna guys just don't actually understand software development very much. It seems like the classic story of getting a job in the space, not liking it too much, seeing the growth opportunities, and you got a couple growth opportunities when you get your first dev job. So when you're starting as a junior at a company, the obvious easy path is to get a better role, i.e. senior. You can do that by leveling up at the company or going to another company. You can also, and this is common and honestly probably needs to be more common because we definitely have an industry shortage of good managers right now. You can go down the management path instead. It's not glamorous. People don't like this, but it's a very real path you can take. And I think more people need to take it. Good managers are harder to find than good devs right now. And if you can be a good manager for a technical team, you have a really, really high upside and the ability to like get into companies at really valuable stages and steer them in different ways. Like this is a really good path. More people should take it. Then you have the founder path, which is the realization that everything around you is fucked and you could fix it. And you decide to go make something better. If you're at a company and it's very obvious to you that they have no idea what they're doing and everything's falling apart internally, don't fight that instinct. Embrace it. Go make something better. If you think it's that screwed and that you and a few other people could make a better version of it, or you see some problem that they're just not fixing internally, go leave and do it. It's a great option if you have a good reason to take it. But these are your main paths for leveling up from your first gig. But what if you don't want to do something hard? What if you don't want to keep working to get better at coding? What if you don't want to be managing people? What if you don't want to be a founder? What if, and here's the spicy part, you want a credential chase? Credential chasing is one of my least favorite things in the world because it's a thing I just couldn't give less of a fuck about, and I've seen it rot the brains of really smart people. Credential chasing is a thing that I see happen most when people are coming fresh out of high school because they go from wanting to be top of their class to wanting to be at the best university to wanting to be top of their class at the best university to wanting to have a really good job at a really big company. But from that point forward, there aren't really as many clear big status wins. Obviously, like getting promoted to a senior role is something, but you don't have the like big oh shit moments that you had up until that point in your life, and you have to decide what you want to do there. And this is the saddest part. I think a lot of people going down the founder path right now are going down the founder path specifically because that's a high status thing. They want to be cool. They want to be successful. They want to get into YC. The fact that people are going to YC as the natural next step after Stanford because they're just trying to have cool accolades to put on their resume hurts me. Hate it so much. And there's one type of credential chasing I hate more than almost all others: influencing. And I know this is ironic coming from me, but I've been saying this for a while. I don't make content because I want to be popular. In fact, that's almost an inconvenient part at this point. I actively go out of my way to make my content less appealing to beginners so that I get fewer views and fewer subscribers because I want the audience I have. I love you guys, the people who come and watch these videos, who nerd out about the details of technologies and frameworks, who come up to me at events to get down dirty with all the details on how this stuff works. That's why this channel exists. I'm not doing this because I want to be a popular YouTuber. I accidentally became a reasonably sized YouTuber. That was never my intention. It's still kind of crazy and strange to me. I don't think of myself as an influencer. It's weird. But a lot of others do. There's a lot of people who pick this as a path out because it seems easier than getting better at code. And honestly, in many ways it is. If you spend your college years grinding, getting good enough at code to get the job, and your plan is to do it, and then you get the relief of being done, and then you show up at work and realize you have to keep learning the same way, it sucks. If you spent your college years playing around with frameworks, learning how to code, and hating every moment of it, doing it just because you have to get a job, I have bad news. The job's a lot of that too. So if you go through all of that and realize that this is going to be your life forever, you have two options. Your options are skill up or change. You can either keep getting better and keep leveling up down the path you're on, or you can change the path you're on. And it seems like our friends at Apna chose this. Instead of continuing to better their skills as developers, they're choosing to let them atrophy. Instead of trying to climb at a company, they're trying to teach others how to get to the place they're at. There's the classic, those who can do, do, those who can't do, teach. And I hate that this feels more real every day. There's a reason I don't do courses. I'm too busy shipping actual shit. I'll occasionally do a tutorial, but even then, it doesn't feel worth it. And there are people who are really good doing it. For every 10 of these more grifty content tutorial grinding people, there are a couple awesome ones. Like Code with Antonio, absolute legend. His tutorials are within the best for any field, but for free on YouTube, it's crazy the level of depth he goes into. I love what he is doing because he's not selling a promise. You have two things you can sell as an educator. You can sell specific interest in topics. And I don't mean sell like charge. I mean sell like gain interest. So I can say, my tutorial will teach you how to use these technologies together versus my courses will help you get a job in tech. Hate that. Really hate that. So yeah, it seems like Apna is in the business of selling promises. In particular, they seem to be in the business of selling the promise of getting your first tech job to people in nations where that is a life-changing opportunity. If you can go from a family that makes less than 10K a year to a job where you make over 100K, it's pretty life-changing and magical, and I understand why people are chasing that. But as such, the ones who are the most willing to sell are going to be the ones that find success there. I'm never going to make one of those crappy get a tech job in 100 days videos. I don't believe that at all. It's fucking bullshit. I hate all of that. But since people like me, like Primogen, like Antonio, the ones who have the history in the space, we're not willing to make those videos, but there is interest in those videos, someone's going to make it. And the people who make those videos are going to skew less honest, because the more honest people won't do it. If one of these desperate people has 2 videos in their recommendations, or they YouTube search how to become a developer, and they have these 2 options. They have a story like the videos I do, how I became a good engineer in 2 years, or they have this clickbaity bullshit of how to make 100K in 100 days. When these are your options and you don't know any better as a person coming in, you're going to pick this awful option. This is particularly frustrating to me because neither of these videos are going to get you a job in tech. Neither of these are going to help beyond maybe helping you learn a bit faster, get your head in the space better. But as was just said in chat, which I think is a really good point from NMG here, I don't understand how people think learning alone can help you get a job. Like, no, a ton is social game and the rest is specific work. And I totally agree there. It's a very common, weird mindset thing I see where people think if I have the right knowledge, if I have the right credentials, if I have AWS on my resume, I should be able to get a job. Why would I hire you if I have 3 people I already know that are as qualified as you, but I know who they are? You need to have the connections first and foremost. And this is where we start getting into the open source thing. These 2 statements might seem contradictory. I'm going to explain why they're not. Statement 1 is that contributing to open source makes you easier to hire. And statement 2 is that you shouldn't use open source work to get a job. Why is this? I'm going to do some art for you guys. Generally speaking, horses pull carts. This structure makes sense because the cart is pulled by the horse. Let's say you have stuff that you want to get to a location. We'll say the location is Francisco. You want to get here. And you see other horses and carts making it there. So you think, okay, I get it now. I just need a cart. So you take this and you try your best to get it there, but the cart just isn't moving. So you see other people have a horse, and somehow cart plus horse means they successfully make it to their destination. So you get a horse as well. It's not working. You have a horse, you have a cart, you're not going anywhere. What's going on? You're getting the order of events wrong. The problem here is not that horses aren't effective for getting to Francisco. Problem here is that horses are a thing that happens if you're doing the right work to get there. Let's reframe this. Instead of horse and cart, skilled dev, and open source. Instead of Francisco, tech job. If we were to break down who contributes to open source, do a quick normal graph, normal curve, thing that you can totally do easily in Excalidraw. Good enough. You have a normal curve of developers, and this is of all devs, where on the right, they are the gods of the industry, like the Ryan Carniatos. And on the left, there are the people who failed out of their first coding bootcamp. And this is the spectrum of developers. Where do you think the open source contributors that run the tech that we all tend to use fit in this chart? So this is all devs. And on the left here, we have bad devs. And the right here, we have God devs. Where do the open source devs fall in this? First, I'm going to ask a different question. Where do you think devs who are getting their first job fall? This is first job devs, people who are getting their first opportunity in the industry. And your goal is to get through and level up as quick as possible, that you're a good enough dev by the time it's either time for the next job or for you to potentially get a promotion. But you as a developer want to advance from left to right throughout your career. You want to start as a bad dev that has no idea what they're doing, get good enough to get your first job, keep improving, and maybe someday you become one of those god devs, or maybe you get here and you're like, yeah, that's fine. Awesome. So where do those open source devs fit? I'd say from this point onwards is what I would categorize as like most prominent open source maintainers. Most of the smartest people I know in the industry do meaningful open source work. There's a few who don't, but honestly, the ones who don't are just really young, and I would expect at some point in their career, those devs are going to end up doing more and more open source stuff over time. So here's the problem. Let's say you're here. This is you. You're a new dev wanting to learn and get your first job. You look up to these god devs. Let's say, I don't know, Linus, creator of Linux and Git. So you're here. You see Linus all the way over here. And you see Linus's traits. Linus has a couple notable things. He likes open source. He's an asshole. And he shares his work a lot. So you see these traits from this god tier dev. So you end up copying them. You do your best to take these traits because it seems like that's what successful people do. This is called cargo culting. You do not understand how you end up here. Linus doesn't like open source because he's a god dev. He likes open source because he had to go through this whole process himself as a bad dev, becoming a good dev over time. And during his process getting there, he grew a fondness to open source because the closed source systems he was using caused him a lot of problems. He also earned his right to be an asshole because of all of the problems he encountered on his way across this chart. If he started the way he is now, he would have had a much harder time getting there. And the problem that's going on here is there's people in this space here that are like good enough to get their first job, but don't know how to go from here to eventually that side there. So what they're going to do instead is copy the traits that they're seeing all the way over here because that's what they think success must be. And this happens far too often. This happens in a lot of different spaces. Like just a simpler example in content creation. A lot of people see me successful on YouTube and they ask me for advice. The advice they ask for isn't, how do I make my first video? It's usually, what camera are you using? What software are you using? I want to make videos just like yours. But the videos I make are very different from the ones I started with. And the tech I use to make them is very different from the tech I started with. The best thing to make your first video with is the things you already have. You shouldn't buy a bunch of new stuff to inspire you to make the first video. You should do it despite not having the right equipment. And once you get good at it, you'll figure out what your equipment can and can't do and make changes based on what you know. And this is the reality. To put it more simply, they seem to think if you take a bad dev and make them do open source, that out comes a good dev. No. This is not how it works at all. Looks more like this. Bad dev puts in hard work, becomes a good dev, and then, and only then, they start doing the open source work. This is the problem. Everyone's getting the order of events wrong. They think open source is the trick to improve your skills. And open source can absolutely be a tool to help you at a certain point in your career. But open source isn't how you get to the good dev status. Open source is a thing you end up doing once you hit a certain dev status. Another way of putting it is, most great devs do open source, but doing open source does not make you a good dev. And people fall for this trick far too often. They seem to think open source is this magic gateway to getting a job. And here's where people like me need to take some accountability here. The fact that we hold up these incredible open source maintainers to such a high status, which I don't think we shouldn't do. I think it's valuable that we're doing that. The fact that we do it, though, means that people aspire for this, and then they get their order of events wrong. So on one hand, the fact that we hold these people to such a high regard and status inherently is going to result in some amount of this. And when we talk about these people, these legends in the space, it's important that we talk about them in a way where we can learn from them without copying what they're doing. Copying their open source work is a fun thing to do to learn, but it's not a way to get noticed or get a job. That said, even I have told stories that kind of sound counter to that, where I've talked about developers who, through their open source work, got awesome gigs. If we look at the Create T3 app contributors, for example, Nexel, who started it, ended up getting a reference letter for college from me, which I think hopefully helped some amount. Julius here is the reason all of our tech is running. He is quickly leveled up from a member of the community to running a lot of T3 chat and upload thing and the other stuff we do. I just helped him get an O1 to move here. And CJE here, the legend Christopher, has become one of my favorite people in the web dev space. He's now working at Axiom. He shows up a lot. He has his own awesome content as well. All three of these people largely got noticed through their work creating and contributing to Create T3 app. It ended up being huge for all of their careers. Not saying it's just them, like everyone in this list is legendary. I love everyone from Michael, Inava, and so many others. I'm like number 11 or 12 in this list just to emphasize how valuable the contributors were that made this happen. But this wasn't them spamming PRs on some other thing. In fact, it was quite the opposite. The reason this project started is because I told the community I wouldn't build it. I just straight up said in my videos that I wasn't interested in doing it because I wouldn't want to plug all the pieces together just for people to not need half of them. If someone wanted to make a CLI, they could, but I'm not going to. And that's what Nexel did. He made the CLI because I said I wasn't interested. He made it open source. Other people started contributing from my community. And that's what this ended up becoming. This was never about the code. I never read the code any of these guys wrote. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about the contribution specifically. It was how well they contributed to and maintained a community around their work. This wasn't impressive because, oh, these guys have open source on their resume. This was impressive because these guys built a community around things that I had talked about and done, maintained it, and made great software as a result of it. This is not the path most people should take, though. There are other people who have taken much simpler paths that have found even more success. One of them was just in my chat. Gabriel, who's a moderator on my channel and also is collaborating with CJE at work at Axiom. Where are you? I know you just messaged. Yeah, CJE is cracked. Gabriel came up by being useful in my Twitch chat. He also would pop up on GitHub issues here and there and help with repros. He would show up in my Twitter spaces with useful resources and links. He's the reason a bunch of my video topics even came to be. I owe him a ton for all of our success. The key is to be useful. In order to get hired, you have to show that you'll provide value. There's a lot of ways to do this that vary in difficulty. The easiest by far is to be known by the people who would do the hiring that are more likely to have a position to give you and find some way to befriend them so they can trust you, so they know that you would be a good hire. You don't do that by throwing random PRs at random projects you don't even use. You want to show that you get it, first and foremost. So how do you do that? By building shit, using libraries, and running into problems. If I had two options for candidates, they both have some GitHub activity. One has lots of issues they cut on other projects. Those issues have lots of references and repros, and their comms are good. Oh, one last thing. Real name plus pro pic helps a ton. I understand some people can't do that, but if you can, it's huge. Versus lots of PRs that never get merged, lackluster descriptions, no issues cut, never comments on anything but their own stuff, animate PFP plus nonsense username. One of these people is a much better hire than the other. And when you give the instruction of contribute to open source, funny enough, this looks more like contributing to open source. Opening a bunch of PRs and having a bunch of activity on your GitHub seems and feels more open sourcey than cutting issues on other people's work. But as crazy as it sounds, the person here who wrote more code is the worst hire. Because the open source part isn't meant to show all the work they're doing. It's meant to be a result of the work they're doing. If you're working on real shit, you're going to run into real problems. Here's a fun example that just dropped in chat live. I saw Tanner just dropped. Him and Fred did this project in 20 minutes at VConf. This project's them stuffing TanStack Start into Astro. If this speaks to you, if this is really interesting and exciting to you, you've heard about Astro and TanStack Start, you've played with them both a bit, and the idea of combining them is exciting, go try it. And if you have issues, share them. Document them. Do what you can to help improve it, not because you just want to improve and to get a job, but because you want to use it, so you want it to succeed. Spicier way of putting this. If you don't know what's valuable, you're not ready yet. If you don't know what people are looking for on GitHub, don't try to provide value yet. It's okay to just focus in on learning and improving and getting better. You don't need to be contributing when you don't know what to contribute. You need to be working so you know what to contribute, you know what's missing, you should probably read over 100 GitHub issues before you ever file a PR. And the problem with a lot of these educational sources that are focused on beginners is they're trying to get you the list of things that make good developers good, supposedly. But those are just characteristics of good devs. It'd be like me saying, if you want to be good at JavaScript, you should get a collared shirt because Theo wears a collared shirt. It just doesn't make sense. It's a result of other things that I was interested in. And this is the problem. They're trying to tell you what's valuable, but you can't be told what's valuable. Nobody can tell you what matters because it has to matter to you. If someone's trying to sell you the promise of what will make you successful, if you fill this hole, you'll be good, you're going to fail. You need to solve problems that you have that'll make you way more successful. I could end it on this wholesome note, but I haven't complained enough yet, so let's do some complaining. This video, in and of itself, is irresponsible. I hate just going after people like this, but I was sent the website for the courses that they're selling. It really just feels like they're trying to sell the promise of being successful. Learn to become the top 1% software developer is literally what I was showing here. They're selling you the promise that you can get into this section on the right, but you can't learn to be here. You don't get here by being told what this is like. The reality is if we put most educators in here, most dev educators fit like here at best. There are very few people who dedicate their lives to education that are top of the craft, because if they are, they're too busy doing the craft, especially in tech. It is very rare you find creators and educators in the space that do better than this range. The best you'll find is people like Ryan and me that aren't really trying to teach. We're just trying to vent. And that's also why I like Ryan Carniato's streams so much, because he is almost inarguably like the furthest along person in this spectrum in the dev, so at least the web dev space, that regularly makes content. And it's so awesome that he does. It's incredibly rare. He's one of like 3 people ever that has been that smart, but also shared the way they think about things. And you should pay close attention to those people. When someone is that weird, unique blend of sharing their thoughts in an exciting, encouraging way and top of their craft, that's a good resource you should use. But somebody who quit a few months to a few years into their first job that is now selling you the promise of getting you past where they themselves are makes no sense. I will never tell you how to be more successful than me, because if I knew, I would just go be more successful. This promise makes me feel sick. Genuinely, I hate this so much. I hate just going after another creator like this, but this is harmful and damaging, absurdly so. So what's been the response? This started again because Neural Nets tweeted last week, why are people adding their names to the Express.js repo and calling it a pull request? This is a thing that I made my video about 2 years ago. It's good to see this coming back, and I want to give a huge shout out to Neural Nets for bringing this story back, because it didn't get action last time. It is getting a little bit this time. Prime then, 2 days later, posted, the video is still up, screenshotting the video where Apna College encourages people to go file these PRs. I'm very upset. Many others were. Also got a nice shout out from somebody who went and watched my video on this because of the drama spinning back up. Yeah, this was a really good summary. Thank you, Darsh, for posting this. I appreciate you a lot. And then the response started. Anyone who watched the vid should have watched an extra 40 seconds to get what's actually happening. She clearly states the PR shouldn't actually be raised. It's simply shown to depict the process. The kids who are raising the PRs are the ones at fault. I don't agree with this sentiment. The problem is that tutorials like the one that she has here, and that's what it's called, a tutorial, these are meant to be followed along with, step by step. You're meant to follow along and do the same things that Apna does throughout it. So if you tell them, don't do this thing after you do it, that's on you. You can't show them you combining the nasty chemicals as they've followed every step along the way and then say, don't do this after, when they've already done it. It's already over. In fact, I would bet a lot of the kids who followed along with this tutorial probably felt a bit of shame after they hit the button just to hear the speaker say seconds later, by the way, don't do this. That must hurt. That must genuinely suck. And I feel bad for the devs who are learning, that don't know any better, who trusted this resource with 7 million subs and almost 6 million plays to be a good thing to follow along with when it isn't. That hurts a lot. And I am not one of the ones who's going to go after the devs for doing this. I will say they should probably have went and figured out how to close the PR once they heard that information, and the ones who didn't, I'm a little disappointed in. But at the very least, not mad at them. They can't know better. They don't know what's right or wrong. They don't know what's useful or useless. They don't know how this works. And if they see someone with 6 million subs doing the thing, they probably assume it's harmless and okay to do. You have to preface not doing this first. If you want to tell them not to do it, you don't tell them after when they're following along, you tell them before. The other thing you can do is edit down the video. The video was hour 15:21 at the time. It's now been cut down to hour 14:16. How do you cut a video that's already uploaded? YouTube has a feature for this. They let you, in YouTube Studio, edit down a video to remove parts. This is useful for like adding a blur to censor something, removing a part that shouldn't have been in it without having to lose all the views and the link and everything else for the video. YouTube does sometimes limit channels from editing highly viewed videos. Like for a while, YouTube wouldn't let me edit a video when it broke 100K plays. It doesn't seem to do that for me anymore. I don't know if there is still a cap for that, but a lot of channels do have limitations on when they're still allowed to edit videos once they hit a certain threshold of viewership. I would honestly believe Apna College if they said they couldn't have edited this in the past because of those restrictions. That said, they've never said this. They've never really acknowledged this drama. They had a pinned comment saying don't contribute, but no one's reading the pinned comment when they're an hour and 13 minutes into a tutorial. They're following through step by step. You can't call it a tutorial and then retcon something you did in it after. You have to edit it accordingly. And the fact that this has caused so much damage is insane. Enough so that finally we got an acknowledgement from Sharda from Apna College. TLDR, tutorial's fine. We'll edit 5 seconds out in good faith. Sure. Wasn't 5 seconds. It was about a minute, judging from runtimes. But sure, it was just 5 seconds. In reference to our Git tutorial, any Hindi speaker will understand that we used an example to tell learners not to do this bad open source practice. No, that's not what she did. She showed how the feature works in a step-by-step tutorial and then said it was bad practice as she hit the button. The PR was never created in the tutorial and clearly told viewers repeatedly for the next 35 seconds, from 03 to 1439, to not create useless PRs updating the README. We assume some missed this part. Literally thousands of people, but sure. In good faith, we'll have our team edit out the 5-second segment that showed them not to do the bad practice. This might take some time. No, it was a 1-minute section. This in and of itself, not a great update, really just avoiding taking ownership. The problem here is she's not acknowledging whether or not her action was good at all, because all she cares about is her good faith that she did not mean for this to happen. I replied accordingly. You need to care less about what you did and more about the damage it's doing. This has been a problem for years, and you've refused to acknowledge it until now. There's a point at which your actions are no longer defined by your intentions. I've had to accept this for a long time. There's a lot of things I want to do and say that I choose not to because I know that there will be downstream impacts of those statements. It makes me hesitant to even do this video because I'm scared you guys are going to go flame Apna, and worse, you might be negative towards other Indian devs that are working really hard that totally belong in our space. The fact that making this video is going to increase the amount of racism in tech by an amount terrifies me. It genuinely makes me feel sick. I hate that. And if I was to see a big enough uptick directly credited to my video, I would instantaneously take it down, even if I feel like I went out of my way and I did everything right. Once you see the impact of the work, you have to be realistic. And if the impact of the Apna College's work is this, they need to acknowledge that. But this is the harshest reality here. I would be upset about this because I care a lot about the dev space. I want my fellow devs that work hard to find success in this space, to contribute awesome things and continue to evolve all of the industry. Apna College doesn't care. Sharda here doesn't care. If software improves or doesn't improve, her income and her success is not affected in any meaningful way. If tech stops moving, my success is affected significantly because I've bet my whole life on this. I care a lot about this. And Apna College staff doesn't, which is why when they think about this, all they think about is through the lens of their business and their students. Taking down a video with 6 million views, almost 7 million views, is going to be a significant impact to their channel. They're going to have less upsell to their courses. They're going to have less views on the channel, less things being recommended, less chance of finding success and building their business and selling this course that I don't know if it's good or not. All I know is I don't like the vibe of the people who are making it and the way that they sell it. They are giving up some of their business for a thing they see as totally fine and just bad students following it incorrectly. They won't take the blame because they don't see their actions as harmful, because they can't even really see the harm. They don't care. The only reason they're addressing it now is because they've been called out for it publicly enough. It's the fact that this is going public and is getting enough attention that they're finally responding to it. Not because of the damage, just because of the attention. Which is why, you might have noticed, I'm blocked. This reply was enough for me to get blocked and hidden. Yes, really. Shraddha here didn't care for people to see my thoughts. That's why this has 430 views. She actually took the time to hit the hide button. It's pathetic. They have no interest at all in helping the space of tech. If their audience was to go out and destroy GitHub, they would just start making GitLab tutorials. They can't perceive the damage because they don't write real code, and they don't care because they don't like real code either. This is all just a status grind to sell the promise of success, and that's why I hate it so much. I normally don't like talking about these types of people and these types of things because honestly, there is basically zero overlap between these audiences and my own. If we look at what channels people who watch my stuff watch, it's Fireship, Prime, Low Level, OpenAI, TechLinked, funny enough. Love the LTT guys. Wes Roth, Berman. Not familiar with Network Chuck. I should definitely check that out though. Short Circuit. RJ, I've heard good things about. I haven't looked into his stuff at all. AI Code King, fucking legend. He's killing it lately. But none of this is beginner craft tutorial stuff. All of this is experienced developer content. That's the difference. They live in a bubble, but we do too. Their bubble is here. They live in this space that is people learning who some of them, like 5% of the audience at Apna, might be good enough for their first job. We live more here, I would say. There is the occasional god dev. Like I should make like a little triangle at the end here just to make sure we can fit Ryan Carniato in, because I know Ryan watches my stuff. But for the most part, our audience is between people who have had their first job for a bit and have been in the industry for a while, which means we don't really remember what it's like getting our first job anymore. And it's also changed a lot over time. They live in their bubble here, so they don't care what goes on the other side. They just see these traits and assume those traits are what make people successful, and then they sell the promise that they'll help you get there by listing these traits to you. The whole system fucking sucks, and I dearly, dearly dislike it. But we need to all acknowledge the fact that we're in our own bubbles. This all seems obvious to us because we all live here, and this all seems inconsequential to them because they live here. They don't see maintainers as people. They see maintainers as this weird thing that just happens in nature. They just exist. And these things that are so big, they don't perceive the harm. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but when the people who teach at Apna College look at a repo with 100,000 stars, they see that as massive and untouchable and impossible to make life harder for. If you don't believe this, you should see the hidden comment section on my YouTube channel where all of the nasty comments get auto-hidden by YouTube without any intervention on my own side. There are people who will see someone or something with status as so far removed from their life that there's no way they can perceive harm. And this happens regardless of status. This is entirely in a space. If you have 10 stars on GitHub and you see a project with 100,000 stars, you don't mind talking shit because the gap is so big, you can't see it as punching down, even if you have 1 million followers on Twitter. And here's the problem. There's a status gap in the developer space where Express has a much higher status and Apna College is a lower one. But there's another gap in reach where Apna College has much higher reach than Express's maintainers do. And the result is this utter fucking madness that happens because no one empathizes with each other or talks to each other or thinks things through. They're too busy trying to make their ends meet to give a fuck about what's going on outside of their space. And if you ever see me do this, call me out for it. I want to know. One of my greatest fears is making mistakes like what they're doing here. The idea of making a group of maintainers' lives harder because it makes mine slightly easier is sickening, genuinely. So if you see me do this, call me out. If you see others doing this, DM me so we can figure out how we want to resolve it. Don't let bad educators ruin open source for the hardworking maintainers that put all this effort in. And maybe, just maybe, if you do really like education and you hang out here, there must be some room in the space for a good faith educator focused on earlier stage people, especially in India. So maybe go do that. That's all I got on this one. Please stop spamming these repos with open source. And if you harass anyone as a result of this video, just know I'll be disappointed as fuck. I got nothing else to say on this. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, peace, nerds.